So now, in the time that we have at our disposal this evening, for an hour or two, just like to see if I can tie up a few things. Christmas is halfway over now. The Christmas season continues until January the 13th, when we celebrate the baptism of Jesus. But for most people, Christmas is over. So I want to kind of go back, and as Mary, we're taught in the gospel this evening, she pondered all these things and reflected them in her heart. And so Christmas can be a very sentimental time, and we miss maybe the whole message and the whole meaning of Christmas. And there's so much to be taken from how Jesus came into this world, the whole story surrounding Christmas. So I want to take a kind of a panoramic view, and you'll see hopefully that it covers the whole spectrum of life as we experience it at this moment, and then conclude with today's feast, which is the feast day of Mary, the Mother of God. So just going back then to beginning with the Annunciation for a brief moment. Mary's real name, we're dealing with history now, the bit we know about Mary from a historical source. Mary's real name was Miriam, M-I-R-I-A-M, Miriam. And Mary, when the Annunciation took place, she would have been about 14 or 15. And that might come as a surprise to many people. And by way, before I deal with Mary, I want to say, when you look at a statue of Mary, that doesn't do justice to the woman that we are talking about at all. Because when most of you think of Mary, don't you think of a woman in a beautiful blue robe with her hands raised to the sky? Well, I'm pretty sure Mary never possessed a beautiful blue robe in her life. And she never went around with her hands raised to the sky. Mary would have been uneducated. And at 14 or 15, her daily routine would be working in the kitchen and working in the garden or in the land. That would be the normal thing for a young girl of her age in those days. She was almost certainly black-skinned. I don't mean black-skinned, but dark-skinned. Probably dark eyes and dark hair. Now, we'll continue with that story. Then the angel comes and tells her, this little girl, 14 or 15, she's going to be the Mother of God. Poor Mary must have been just astounded. She didn't understand. We know that again from the Gospel. So Mary becomes another teenage pregnancy. So you see now, right away, how it's beginning to fit into a lot of what's happening in life today. And she's on her own. Now, how does Joseph come into the picture? Well, in the days that we're talking about, families lived in small communities, maybe 5 or 6 families, and they lived around almost like a little circle. And they would all have known each other. And almost certainly Joseph was part of that little community. So he would have known Mary. Now again, going back to historical accounts, it's quite possible, I'm not saying this is anyway certain, that Joseph was married, his wife had died, he possibly maybe had a family, and he was a widower. And so he was an obvious choice to take on Mary and look after her, which he did. Very worried. So now there we have 2 people very worried. Can we identify with that? Problems How are we going to deal with this? Can you see how real the whole story of Christmas is, and what an injustice we do to it when we sentimentalize it or paint pictures of Mary like that. Now, what kind of a person was Mary? She heard the news that her cousin Elizabeth was also pregnant, and she was pretty old herself and Zachary. And what did Mary do? She forgot about herself and she went off to look after Elizabeth, because she thought an old lady like her could do with a bit of help, because Zachary isn't going to be much help. You know, like most men. Pretty useless. So off she goes, and she looks after Elizabeth, totally forgetting about herself. What a beautiful example. Now where is the lady in a beautiful blue robe with her hands joined all day? Far from that. She's busy. She goes off because she knows Elizabeth, poor Elizabeth, at her age, and she's pregnant. She could do with a bit of help. Then she comes back, and eventually it comes to the time for Jesus to be born. Now, we're not sure how they arrived in Bethlehem or how they came to be in Bethlehem. But let's look at the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem just for a brief moment. And sometimes we're told he was born in a stable. Well, if we go back to the original Aramaic and the Hebrew, and we come across the word manger, what does that really mean? Well, you have a good example of it here. The normal house in Judea at that time was a house something like our altar here, and where I am down here. Pretty open. They didn't have any interior walls. And at night time, they would bring the animals in from outside for two reasons: to provide, well, three reasons: to provide shelter, to protect them, and also, very important, to provide heat for the family. Now, I lived on a farm, and when I lived on a farm, we had no central heating or anything like that. So it was pretty cold. But the best place to be, if you wanted to get some heat, was to go out to the cattle shed at night, because it was lovely and warm, because cattle generate a lot of heat. And in Sweden at one stage, somebody developed a system where they had a pipe coming from the cattle shed into the house to provide heat. It was a form of central heating, and it was very effective as long as you didn't mind the smell. But it was very effective, and it was good. It was good. So almost certainly, little Jesus would have been born in an ordinary family house. The house would have been full. And where was a wonderful place to place him? In the hay, in the manger, the feeding trough for the cattle. He would be lovely and warm and cozy. And we're told Mary wrapped him in swaddling clothes and what? Laid him in the manger. And that's the meaning of the manger. Now, what do we see every day? When we turn on the news on television, what do we see? Little families, women and children and men, fleeing from some despot who was trying to kill them, fleeing for their lives. What do we see the Holy Family doing? Fleeing into Egypt with the little child. Can you imagine for a moment what that was like? You know, you see some horrible pictures on the news media these days. Mary and Joseph experienced that. So right away